What's up guys, my name is Brock, you're watching The Modest Man, and today we're talking about my new watch. This is a vintage Datejust reference 16030. It was most likely produced in 1984 or 1985, which makes it just about as old as I am. It's a 36mm steel Oyster case. It's on its original Jubilee bracelet. And of course, it's got the iconic Cyclops date magnification bubble. This is designed to make the date appear larger and therefore more legible. This Datejust also features a quickset date. This is a convenient feature that Rolex invented in the 1970s that lets you set the date quickly rather than turning the hour hand manually to advance the date. This particular Datejust has a pretty unique dial. It almost looks silver at first glance, but you'll notice the white lettering. And the dial is actually like this soft, warm gray. It's almost like a champagne, and it's a bit of a chameleon. It looks different in different types of lighting. The Datejust was introduced by Rolex in 1945, and it's still one of their most popular models. This watch has a ton of history. It's been worn by people like Winston Churchill and Dr. Martin Luther King. And while I could spend this whole video talking about the history and the movement and the technical specs, let's be honest, the most remarkable thing about this watch for most people and what makes it special is the fact that it's a Rolex. The Rolex brand is what it is, partly due to innovation and craftsmanship. They had a lot of firsts in the watch industry, like waterproof watches and the quickset date, but it's also due to, let's call it what it is, really, really great marketing. The Rolex brand is synonymous with luxury. And while there are other watch brands that are way more expensive than Rolex, they don't have the same cachet or nearly the brand awareness or the recognition in just the public eye that Rolex does. Most Rolex watches are purchased and worn as status symbols. And that's totally fine, Definitely the brand is one of the big reasons why I chose a Rolex over another luxury watch brand. So why did I buy this watch? Well, taking it back a few years, I remember getting the first watch that I actually wore. It was a fashion watch. And I remember I kind of got bitten by the watch bug. So I started to wear that watch and I really liked it. I got some compliments on it and I went down the watch rabbit hole. And so I found myself on watch forums reading about the virtues of Seiko. For a while I thought that brands like Rolex were just overpriced and totally not worth it. And I couldn't see myself ever wanting to spend thousands of dollars on a watch. I remember buying my first dive watch, the Seiko SKX 013, still one of my favorite watches. And I really fell in love with the steel case and the steel construction and kind of the chunky, durable nature of dive watches. I loved the fact that it's waterproof and I could take it swimming.
It didn't work.
I spent a little more money on my Hamilton khaki mechanical, and I was kind of enamored by the Swiss movement and the history behind the brand. So my preferences are, kind of changing from these fashion watches and having a big watch collection to more of like a minimal, very high quality collection. And I started thinking, well, if there's one watch, if I could buy one watch and wear it for the rest of my life, what would it be? For a while I was looking at Omega, thinking maybe I'll get like a vintage Omega dress watch. But I remember hanging out with my friend Baron, who runs Effortless Gent, and he had this vintage Datejust on his wrist. And it was like the first time I had kind of like handled or tried on a Datejust in person. And I just loved the size. I fell in love with that watch. And Baron told me that he got his watch for like a pretty reasonable price on the secondhand market from a dealer that he knew and trusted. And that definitely planted the seed. So I decided that I was gonna buy myself a secondhand Datejust when I hit a certain financial milestone as kind of a reward. Then I hit that milestone and I didn't pull the trigger because I've never spent that much money on myself. And granted, I buy stuff for work. Like I have a nice computer, I have a nice camera. I'll spend money on that stuff, but I've never bought a nice car or anything like that. I just don't. I don't know, I guess I'm kind of frugal that way. So the idea of spending that much money on a watch, I just couldn't quite wrap my head around. Fast forward a little bit, I meet Christian from Theo and Harris at a conference. I told him that I was kind of low-key looking for a Datejust, and he's like, oh yeah, I can hook you up. And so I told him my preferences. I wanted something with quickset, so like a later model, wanted a non-white dial, wanted the original bracelet, and he's like, I got it. So he texted me 2 days before I was gonna leave to go get married with a picture of this watch. And he's like, it's a beauty. I just got it. It's fully serviced. It's got this unique dial. It's in pretty good condition for how old it is. Do you want it? And we're going back and forth via text. I'm asking him all these questions. We're actually in a group text with John Shanahan, so he's watching it and he's getting all excited, And, I had to make the decision because I was leaving for my wedding and I was gonna go on a honeymoon. And I was like, you know what? Let's do it. But I'm leaving like tomorrow, and he's like, I'm gonna overnight it. And so he overnighted it, got it the next day, and I was able to wear this watch when I got married. I've been wearing it almost every day since then, and I just love it. And so to me, this watch represents a few things. So here's why I bought it. This watch will always remind me of like the end of 2017 and the beginning of 2018. And it was just this amazing time period of a few months where all these things happened. At the end of 2017, I kind of looked at where I was as an entrepreneur, as a self-employed person. It was the best year I've ever had by far, and I wanted to celebrate that. But then this other thing happened that sort of made everything else pale in comparison. It kind of put everything in perspective. I got engaged at the beginning of the year and then got married a few months later. And, it was just probably my greatest accomplishment to date. So, that definitely needed celebrating. And then a few weeks after that, I got to be best man in my older brother's wedding. So it was just this amazing time. And I thought that, I would kind of celebrate that time with a memento, and that's what this watch is. And so whenever I look at it, years from now, it's gonna remind me of that time period at the end of 2017, the beginning of 2018, when all of these awesome things happened. It was just an awesome time in life. Now, on a practical note, it's also a very versatile watch. The Datejust can absolutely be worn with a suit and tie. It's got a very thin case. It slides right under your cuff of your dress shirt. But it's a dive watch, it's got the Oyster case, it's steel construction, and so it can be worn casually too. So I've worn this from, with everything from jeans and button-ups to shorts and polo shirts. It's one of those watches that could serve as your one watch. Like if you had to choose just one watch to wear for the rest of your life for any occasion, it could absolutely be a Rolex Datejust. I really appreciate Christian from Theo and Harris for finding this watch and for shipping it overnight so I could wear it for my wedding. If you're looking for a used luxury watch, definitely Theo and Harris is a great place to look. One funny thing that I've noticed about wearing a Rolex just for the last few weeks is that no one cares or notices. It's really funny. Like, it's kind of ironic. People, buy these watches as a lot of the times as status symbols, and no one cares. The only people who care what watch you're wearing are other watch people. Most people never even look at your wrist, I'm into watches, so whenever I'm like walking through first class or something, I always look at people's wrists. And by the way, I'm walking through first class to get to my seat in coach. But I'm always looking at people's wrists, and I'll see a couple Rolexes and nice watches. But for the most part, nobody says anything. In fact, I got more compliments on my old-fashioned watches than I've gotten on this Rolex so far. So, just kind of a funny little thing that I've noticed about wearing this watch. So if you're buying it for that reason, I'd save your money. All right, guys, so that's a little bit about my new watch. That's why I bought it, kind of my thinking behind it and what it means to me. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay stylish.